Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national broadcaster, Doordarshan, about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations, and India's ties with important countries that are shaping the world order. Viewers, in this episode, we are going to take a close look at India's relationship with its northern neighbor, the People's Republic of China. This has always been a troubled, conflict ridden, and competitive relationship. But lately, there are signs of a thaw and of a rapprochement between the two Asian powers. So, what exactly is happening? Why is this happening? And what is the way forward for stabilizing India China relations? This is the theme of this episode. And to take us through this, I have with me a very distinguished former diplomat, writer, and thinker, Ambassador Ashok Kantha. Ambassador Ashok Kantha was India's ambassador to China. He was our High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and Malaysia, and has been associated with many think tanks and has been at the forefront on advocating how India should deal with China for many years. Ambassador Kantha, welcome to Indian Diplomacy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Ambassador Kantha, 4 years of frosty relations, confrontation, military face-off, tensions, rivalry, and then now over the last few months you find that there is a thaw and there is more of a positive buzz and talk of normalization. So the first and foremost question is, what are the factors that have brought us to this point where we have been able to somewhat de-escalate this what has always been a conflict prone relationship? And the secondly, is this thaw going to last, or is this just one stop in a long journey which has always been tortuous and riddled with backsliding in the relations?
Well, let's first focus on the positive aspect. There is no doubt about the fact that beginning Prime Minister's meeting with President Xi Jinping at Kazan, Russia, on 23rd October last year, we are witnessing a period of improvement in relations returning to more stable footing and gradual normalization. I think both sides realized that we were in a very rough spot and it had gone on for too long. We were clear that we can return to the normal track only after there was restoration of peace and tranquility in border areas. So we had understanding on disengagement, and then this process started, which has made some headway. You are aware of visits which have taken place from India to China in recent months, though they were mostly in context of SCO, forthcoming SCO summit. Most recently, we had visit of Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who is also member of Politburo of Communist Party of China. He was here for a 2-day visit, met with National Security Advisor as special representative, and met with External Affairs Minister, called on Prime Minister. I believe there is ground for some cautious optimism in the relations. Prime Minister will be visiting China for SCO summit, but still a whole lot of ground needs to be covered.
Right. What is driving this, Ambassador Kantha? I mean, in your view, is it some kind of a tactical retreat from collision by both sides, because maybe we were not, sustaining this confrontational posture was not in the interest of either side? I mean, the Chinese foreign minister, in fact, even mentioned that what has happened in the last few years was not in the best interest of both countries. So, what are the factors driving this?
Clearly, there is recognition and realization on both sides that we need to have a more sort of even-keeled, more stable relationship. The Prime Minister told Foreign Minister Wang Yi that we would like to see relations moving towards greater stability, predictability, and constructive engagement with China. That is our policy. Current geopolitical landscape also encourages both countries to seek a modicum of thought, improvement, stability in relationship. But to my mind, the drivers are largely bilateral in character, and we need to address issues which are there. We must have good relations with China. It's our largest
It's a neighbor, yeah.
neighbor,
We don't have a
and
choice there, yeah.
there are a number of reasons why we have sought to have a constructive partnership with China. Then we have run into problems. Today, what we are trying to do is to rebuild relations. We are still quite some distance away from a reset in relations.
Reset is
We
probably
should be
something,
clear
yeah.
about it, because reset will involve addressing certain structural problems which are there in relations. And to my mind, so far, there is no indication that China is inclined to take on board our concerns, interests, and sensitivities on some vital issues.
In fact, Ambassador Kantha, I want to quote Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he met Mr. Wang Yi. He said that, ties are making steady progress, and he said that respect for each other's interests and sensitivities is the most important element. So I would like our audiences to know from you, what are our sensitivities? And why are the Chinese showing at least signs of respecting our sensitivity, if not fully respecting our sensitivities? So what is our red line, which we have communicated to them over these last few years of tensions, which they are now showing some indication that, okay, we also understand your sensitivities?
We need to step back a little bit and look at what triggered the latest downturn in relations. We had transgressions by Chinese PLA at multiple locations, Eastern Ladakh. They amassed troops in an inexplicable manner. They tried to disturb the status quo very seriously, which led to our taking very effective countermeasures. We conveyed it very forcefully, as Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar has repeated on many occasions, state of borders will determine state of relations.
Right.
If borders are abnormal, if peace and tranquility has been disturbed, it's very difficult to have normal relations. During Wang Yi's call on Prime Minister once again reiterated that peace and tranquility in border areas is essential.
Yeah.
That needs to be maintained. On that issue, there has been progress, no doubt about it. There has been disengagement of troops in certain areas where Chinese were not prepared to discuss disengagement. I'm referring to Depsang and
yeah.
Demchok.
Yes.
They finally came around. To that extent, they did show a degree of sensitivity to our position, which created an opening for moving towards an exploration of more durable, basis for relationship. I think that process is continuing. This is going to be a difficult process. If you look back upon recent developments, there are still so many negative signals coming from China.
Right.
For instance, you look at what happened post Pahalgam, kind of position they had taken during 4-day, military hostilities with Pakistan. China, in fact, provided an unprecedented degree of operational support, operational military support to Pakistan, which is sometimes referred to, yes, as battlefield collusion. So this is a matter of concern to us. So we have, this huge hydropower project coming up in our immediate vicinity.
On the Brahmaputra.
On Brahmaputra, which will be 3 times the size of Three Gorges project, which is the largest hydropower project in the world. This was, raised by Minister of External Affairs with Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Our readout mentions that. But so far, we don't see any indication of China sort of factoring in concerns in that
Not
regard.
fully. So
I'm just mentioning,
yeah,
a couple of
there are areas
examples.
where obviously we
Yes,
still have concerns. Yeah.
and there are also, there are certain areas where Chinese have tried to sort of pile additional pressure.
Pressure.
Taiwan, for instance, you have seen, kind of uh, exchanges which are taking place over the last few days. They put words in mouth of both EM and NSA
We had to actually clarify
as
our position.
supporting, one China policy, and Taiwan being part of China. We had to issue a clarification. So we have to factor in that, we have problems.
So
Let's deal with
sensitivities
them.
remain. Sensitivities remain,
Yes.
viewers. It's not all hunky dory, and we are trying to rebuild some trust, but it's not so easy. Ambassador Kantha, this time, we have also announced new mechanisms, working groups, and expert groups for the managing the border, conflict, and also working on the boundary question, which is a bigger issue about finally delimiting the line of actual control and ending the dispute which has been going on for decades. So, and you already mentioned Mr. Ajit Doval and Mr. Wang Yi already had this 24th round of the special representatives talks on the boundary question. Do you think China is ready to concede and give and take and settle the boundary question now at this stage? I mean, and can we say that these mechanisms that we are creating, the new ones we are announcing, will lead us to some big breakthrough ultimately and end the conflict altogether, the border conflict? Or you think we are just keeping the lid on any future flare-ups and just managing the conflict rather than ending it?
To be honest, I'm not really optimistic that China is inclined to resolve the boundary question at this point of time. But that doesn't preclude uh, need for making strenuous efforts to see, one, we manage the situation along the border, and two, we seek if we can make progress. I'm happy that this time during 24th meeting of special representatives, border issue got focused attention, because it's very difficult now to push aside the border issue. It has come to occupy center stage in India-China relations. I'm happy that the two sides reiterated commitment to 2005 agreement on political parameters and guiding principles, and we also decided to discuss the de-escalation of troops, beginning with principles for that. But I'm not very comfortable about idea of early harvest. The way, especially Chinese side has put it, they are talking about demarcation in pockets, sectors which are ripe for settlement. Now, in the past, they had proposed early harvest in Sikkim sector, but we had not accepted it because that will not be consistent with agreement of 2005. And we need not do something just to show progress. It has
should be
to
in
be
our interest.
Yes, it
Yeah,
should be in
yeah.
our interest. So I think I'm not saying that we should not. We should make effort. I'm not going to prejudge boundary talks. But having been a border negotiator myself, and I was the lead negotiator for 2005 agreement, so I can say that we need to proceed with a great degree of caution.
Right.
This is one issue where we must have clarity, and there's no room for quick fix outcomes because very vital national interests are involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. Always eyes open with China. We cannot relax even 1 second despite the thaw. Ambassador Kantha, you already mentioned this, and you've also been writing about this, the global context, and both the policymakers are also talking about, both sides, policymakers are talking about this as well, and referring to it obliquely, that in the wake of the trade war unleashed by the US on so many countries, including China and India. China and India are the two outstanding ones with whom the Trump administration has not even settled the trade dispute. So there is this view, and it's also very popular on social media, that because of the American sudden, slide in US-India relations and the American hostility towards India, now China and India are coming together to show the Americans that we have other options. Is that a kind of like an exaggerated reading, and could we think about some kind of a strategic reversal where actually China, India come together to counter the US? Because it is always, for the last several decades, the notion was that India and the United States come together to counter China and to keep it under check, right? But it looks like there is some kind of at least a popular notion that this may be even reversed now.
Yeah.
So what is this just a passing phase, or do you think India, China, and they're also talking about reviving RIC and all that against the Western imperialism, and the Chinese ambassador in India is saying we have to come together against Western bullying on trade and all that. How much of this should we take at face value, the idea that we can come together against the US?
Professor Chaulia, I think we are passing through a period of extraordinary turbulence in geopolitical landscape. I think what is needed here is number one, strategic clarity, that we should see, what is our interest, what are our long-term interests, and in that context, while this present geopolitical environment does impact our relations with China, no doubt about it. But any thinking that somehow we can make a common cause with China in strategic terms to counter USA, to my mind, I don't think our leadership would like to move in that direction. We have, as we discussed earlier, a number of very serious problems with China. The common space, strategic space available, convergent interests which are there are limited. I don't think going down that road will anyway compensate for any anxieties we may have vis-a-vis USA at this point of time. So we need to prioritize our relations with China, no doubt about it. Our relations with Russia likewise are very important. Minister of External Affairs
also
had a meeting with
upping
President
the
Putin. I think we need to see that we have better relations with China, but looking at that relationship in context of present turbulence in our relations with the USA is not warranted, because
fact,
it's not going to compensate for any deficit we may have vis-a-vis USA.
Yeah, and you're right. And big strategic turnarounds like this don't happen in like 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month.
Let me just quickly point out one more thing. While I have also seen what Chinese ambassadors said, I have also seen readout from Chinese side suggesting that India and China are coming together to oppose unilateral bullying, very barely veiled reference to the USA. But in reality, what's happening? China and the USA are engaged in very serious dialogue. President Trump would like to visit China later this year. He has been talking about a beautiful deal with China. In fact, on many issues, people feel that he has been treating China with kid gloves compared to kind of treatment he's meting out to allies and partners. So we have to bear in mind that objective reality also.
Absolutely. Ambassador Kantha, now let's come to the regional picture as well. China is not only wanting to turn relations with India in a positive direction, but upping the its own all-weather strategic partnership with Pakistan. They are also now talking about extending the China-Pakistan economic corridor to Afghanistan, where again we have interests and where we would like to maintain our influence. And clearly, China-Pakistan axis will work to curtail our interests. So, if you take it, in a geostrategic terms, China will remain always an adversary and a competitor, right? I mean, that cannot go away. And So, what are the risks and the dangers or the pitfalls we need to watch out for going forward? You already mentioned the dam, there's the China Pakistan axis. So, please tell our audiences why we should continue to be wary of any kind of a. I mean, the Wang Yi is saying we are not rivals, we should be partners. But partnership and friendship, I don't think it's so easy with a complicated neighbor like China. So, what should we be watching out for, and what are the risks and dangers that we should flag for our audiences?
You have referred to difficulties we have with regard to China's behavior and neighborhood, and China-Pakistan nexus is a prime example of that. How it has always sort of worked against our interest. China was supportive of Pakistan's nuclear weapon program, missile program. More recently, we have China-Pakistan economic corridor, which passes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, from New Delhi, Foreign Minister Wang Yi traveled to Kabul for a trilateral meeting with foreign ministers of Pakistan and Afghanistan, where they talked about extending CPEC to Afghanistan. Then he went to Islamabad. So we have to keep in mind those facts. But important thing is that while I'll be reluctant to characterize China as an adversary, I refer to China as a challenge. It's our primary strategic challenge, no doubt about it. But it's a relationship, as our Prime Minister has put it repeatedly, Minister External Affairs said repeatedly, we don't want the differences to degenerate into conflict. We don't want a sort of inimical engagement with China. We need a peaceful border, and that also requires that we should have a level of stability in relationship and certainly peace and tranquility along the borders. But what we have today, while there is some improvement in situation along borders with China, we still have deployment of troops in very high numbers, and this is likely to continue for sixth consecutive winter. And then we have a live border with Pakistan as well, which puts a degree of pressure on our resources because we have to deal with two fronts.
Yeah. Last but not least, Ambassador Kantha, can we trust China to drop its hegemonic push under Xi Jinping? Last 12 years, 13 years, we have seen they want to dominate Asia. They want to be number one in the continent. They may be willing to share power with the United States, but with nobody else. They have that zero-sum mentality, and they've become far more pushy and aggressive towards smaller neighbors. Can we ever trust that they will transform this attitude, or should we go forward, assuming that this pressure and this urge for dominance that they have continued to show will remain, and that we have to continue to counterbalance them in whatever way we have to?
When we look at our relations with China, we have to take a long-term view. We have to show strategic patience. We have to seek, constructive partnership with China. That should be our objective. But we cannot disregard unpalatable facts which are there, and limitations which are also there. You referred to, certain foreign policy posture being pursued by China, a more aggressive, more assertive stance under leadership of Xi Jinping. I think one fundamental difficulty we have that China is not seen to be supportive of rise of India.
Yeah.
That they're not willing to treat India as a co-equal, ascendant peer nation. If there's rise of China, there's also rise of India. And this must take place in a supportive manner. We don't see evidence of that. That creates limitations. Like, you'd like to have a closer economic engagement with China. It's the second largest economy in the world. Yet we have to be careful about how far we can proceed because we have to think in terms of our economic security, strategic interests. When we engage with China, we don't see any indication that China would like to have a more balanced, more equitable,
Equitable, yeah.
economic engagement with us.
Right.
So, looking at China as a sort of solution to some of our economic challenges at this point of time, frankly, may not be a realistic proposition.
And their investments in India anyway have been rather low. I mean, compared to Pakistan, for example, where they have committed to tens of billions of dollars. So, viewers, a very interesting conversation with Ambassador Ashok Kantha. The sum of which is that it's a complex relationship. It will remain a complex relationship. We are not expecting it to be milk and honey, and it is not going to go in a linear path where all our problems will be sorted overnight and we can then hail each other as partners or as best friends. That's not going to happen with China. And the reasons are because the Chinese foreign policy has a certain approach, which is to impose its will on smaller neighbors. But on the other hand, China has compulsions too, and they would also want to minimize friction and conflict going forward with a big neighbor like India. So the global context is there, but the bilateral dynamics are the crucial thing on which we should focus. And the global dynamics can change. Trade wars may be shelved after a while, but the point is India and China have to manage their borders, have to manage the competition in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific, and also across Asia, including our backyard, which is South Asia. So there is a lot that will go into making sure we don't have wars and conflicts in the future. Do look up the concept of the 3 M's, the 3 mutuals that India is proposing to China, and that is the basis on which we would like to stabilize this relationship. But let's not also have any misplaced hopes about this suddenly reversing and becoming a great friendship. We have paid the price for Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai in the past, and that is not coming back. But we keep our eyes open and we'll try to realistically steer this relationship to avoid major conflicts. And of course, there will be also some cooperation on some areas. Let me thank Ambassador Ashok Kantha for sharing your wisdom and your insight and your experience, sir.
Thank you for inviting me, and good to have this conversation with you.
Viewers, China and India will have to coexist. On what terms? Will it be equitable and respectful? That is what India seeks from China, and we hope that they will respond to our call and be sensitive to our concerns. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.